Hey, everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Alice.
Hey now.
Greg, what are you doing here?
Hey, what do you mean? Allison,
Where'd you come from, Greg?
I came from the world of Childish, and I just want to make sure that your listeners know that you're just as wonderful on the other podcast you do.
What if they don't have kids?
Don't need them. You don't need them. A lot of our listeners actually tell us they don't have kids. We talk about sex.
We talk about all sorts of dirty stuff, but also parenting stuff.
Yeah, so.
Check out Childish. New episodes every Wednesday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Maybe I should have got it fixed. Allison Rosen is your new best friend. Allison, with her good times never end. Allison Rosen, doing the wavy pencil dance again. Allison's your new best friend.
Hey, everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome to a very exciting episode of Allison Rosen is your new best friend. Very, very delighted to welcome back my guest. She's a comedian, actress, and writer. You know her as Regina Sinclair on Netflix's Insatiable. She's also appeared on shows like Orange is the New Black, Shameless, Chelsea Lately, which she appeared on over 100 times, Inside Amy Schumer, Grey's Anatomy, Friends, RuPaul's Drag Race, among others. She hosts the very fun iHeartRadio Bachelor podcast, which I was just on, called Will You Accept This Rose? And now her first book is coming out September 29th, but it's available for pre-order. It is called Little Miss Little Compton. Please welcome back to the show, Arden Myrin.
Hey, thank you, Allison. I'm so happy to be here. And you were so great on my podcast. And your listeners who haven't heard you in that episode, they should go take a listen. And it's like it's a standalone because they were doing a best of. So you don't even have to be a Bachelor watcher. You can go listen.
I feel like that little concentrated dose of Bachelor viewing got me back into it. I actually went, I just recorded a Patreon episode with my friend Jenna Kim Jones at patreon.com/Allison Rosen. And we talked about Nick Viall on that episode. Like, I can't shake him.
No. I mean, what were you guys saying about him?
I just wanted to know if she shared the distaste for him that I seem to have right now.
Well, you went deep diving because you broke down his season, right? So was it rewatching the season that put the taste in your mouth, or was it like present day Instagram?
No, it was watching it again, and it's that what we were talking about. Like, he's amorphous, and I don't think he's there for the right reasons.
You know, I will say, and I do like Nick, but I will say, I think, which is why I'm excited for Matt James. I think, because I believe for Nick, so he was on Andy's season, Caitlin's season, Paradise. Mm-hmm. So this was his I think when you've seen The Man Behind the Curtain 3 other times, I think there's you can't help but have sort of a disconnect or maybe a jadedness that comes over you.
Cynicism,
and so
maybe.
I think Matt James, who's coming up, who's going to be the new Bachelor, he's never been through the mansion. He's never been to Sayulita to Paradise. So I think it's good to have a fresh person who's not gone through that, because I think it would be hard to be there for the right reasons when it's your 4th time on the carousel.
Right. Question.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're going to leave this in, even though this is the kind of thing I should take out.
I love
Tony, don't you dare touch this.
Don't you dare, Tony. Don't you dare, Tony.
Don't you dare, Tony.
Tony, I will find you and I will key your car, Tony. I will meet you behind the water slides and I'm going to fucking key your car. So don't you dare take this out.
And then after she keys your car, I'm going to slash your tires.
Yeah, she's going to slash your tires. And it's and then we're going to go get our boyfriends who are party boat DJs, and they're going to... But things are going down in the parking lot behind Wendy's.
Yeah, if you have a Garmin in your car, I'm going to smash and grab it.
Yeah, you got a Garmin? You give me that Garmin, Tony. You think you're better than me? I got a Garmin. I knew where I'm going. It's me and my Garmin. Okay, what are you going to say? What are we leaving
now? Nick has a podcast. He sort of swims in the same waters that we do, in that he has a podcast. Should I not have just said I have a distaste for him? Because what if otherwise... we could have been podcast buds.
Now, I will say I've done his podcast, and I'm sure over the years, having reviewed his season, I'm sure I've said unfavorable things. So he seems to have a fairly good sense of humor about himself. Okay. I think he is aware, like, I think he's fairly self-deprecating. So if you had I will tell you this, in person, he's pretty charming.
Of course he is.
So I think you saying that he wasn't there for the right reasons, I don't think you're saying anything bad.
Thank you.
I would agree with you. I would say by the fourth time, it did feel that nobody quite stood a chance. Rewatching it, I enjoyed him very much on Caitlin's season. I enjoyed him in Paradise, but he did, as a bachelor, seem kind of checked out. So I don't think that you were saying anything that we weren't all thinking.
Okay. Well, thank you. I want to jump into the book, but first let's just talk shop a little bit, because you mentioned me coming on your podcast. I had such a fun time on the podcast. There was like a bunch of us on the show.
It was you and Jerry Trainer from iCarly and Miles Gray, who is the host of the Daily Zeitgeist podcast. And what a trio. Like, what a full championship, like Bulls in the 90s, going all the way to the finals. Like, great trio.
Thank you. But then you also have your producers on there who are like, they chime in now and again.
They chime in.
So the Thursday version of my show, which you're going to be a guest on this week. It's Arden week.
I can't
on my
wait.
Show.
I love this. Truly, this is the high. From what we had a little chat beforehand, this is the highlight of my day. You know that this is the fun part. The rest, I got dressed up for you. I'm clean. I'm not in my disgusting sweatpants. I put on makeup for you. I mean, this is I'm at a party right now. I'm Cinderella at the ball.
Everyone check. And I curled my hair, which is like, I get my hair straightened to get rid of my curl. And then I put a new, more structured, ordered curl back in. I don't know who I am. It's just the quarantine. You need to check this out. Go to youtube.com/Allison Rosen. Please subscribe. I'm currently measuring my self-worth by that subscriber number. So let's get that bad boy up. So anyway, go ahead.
It is. Oh, sorry. Did you have a question? Were you asking?
My question for you is, how is that for you hosting a podcast with a bunch of people? Because I also have sort of a keep the ball bouncing around dinner party aspect to my show. And I've noticed that most other podcasts have like 2 or 3 people.
I will say you have to sort of, as a good host, as a good dinner party host, you have to curate, you have to put together the right group of people. And I have found in the bigger they've gotten, and it's partially just because there's so many fun people I want to have on. And I feel like because of COVID, like the seasons were shorter and stuff, so you just want to get everybody on. So for me, generally, like having one other guest or 2 other guests is easiest. But when it gets bigger, I've learned to be like a conductor and just lay the rules up top so it's not chaos for the listeners. But I will go, Allison, what do you think? Like, Brian, what do you think? And I think that as long as there's somebody who's like the picker, I think it keeps it. But because otherwise, particularly in Zoom, it can be a lot of overtalk, and that's hard for the audience. So I think for me as a host, I want people to feel like it's fun. It's a fun party. It's not chaos. And then I also have a thing where if somebody's dying to speak up, I'll have them just wave their hand into the Zoom camera. And then I will so they know they're going to get a chance, but it's not chaos for the listener. So that was, and I only figured that out because there were a few episodes I was like, ooh, that was a little chaotic. How was it for you?
I don't do the directing the question as much, but I was like, oh, I should. That's so smart. I think I say, similar to what you were saying, I try to like curate the right combination. And there have definitely been times where I'm like, oh, that was missing a certain element. That was like 2 of the same type and it needed a different other type. And so I just sort of hope that by putting together the right personalities, then like magic will happen and alchemy will happen. And it happens so much more in person. So on Zoom, it is a little more challenging.
It definitely is. And I think part of why I also started doing the conducting is there's a few people who are so fun, and what they're so great at is like they have strong opinions and they're like kind of feisty, and I like that. But I want to make sure that everybody gets heard, and so generally I'll like make sure I go to my guests and have it be evenly distributed, but I know that the listeners love our, Anna and Katie are along for the ride. So I'll make sure to include them, or I also know certain things that I know that they will feel strongly about, or that they've texted me about while they're watching it. So it's just figuring, I think it's really fun. And, one of the things I like about the group aspect is, I've been pretty cautious during the pandemic. So I've not really been socializing that much. So it makes me feel social. It makes me feel like I'm at a party. It makes me feel like I've been with a group in a way that I'm not getting, that I would normally be getting if the world wasn't. I don't know if you guys have noticed. Spoiler alert, guys. 2020 is a little unusual. Things are not the norms.
Yeah, it's a little different than normal.
It's a little different. And I feel like everybody needs a slight reprieve, a little distraction, because times are tricky.
So let's talk about your book, which I enjoyed so much. I did not want it to end.
Thank you.
It's so funny and whimsical and unique. And yet when it was over, I felt this sadness. There's also so much sadness in it. And I don't say that to it's moving is what I mean to say.
It's moving.
No one should take what I'm saying. It's not a sad book, but it's got all the emotions in it.
Yeah.
What was your experience of writing it like?
It was an interesting thing because I've been trying to sell this thing for a long time. And then when you read the book, you'll hear the timing of selling it really changed the DNA of the book. And I feel like I actually think it made it a better book in that I could easily have done just sort of a fun beach read and funny essays and, which a lot of it is. I love a book like that. Personally, that's what most of my bookshelf is filled with. But I also felt like, more and more on Earth, I think people want some truth stuff. I felt like, Chelsea Handler's last book, Life Will Be the Death of Me. And then David Sedaris' last book, Calypso. I've loved all of their other books. I've laughed through all of the other, but they had there was more that felt a little more honest. And so I was, I really wanted to. It was scary because I grew up in a waspy New England house where you sort of don't talk about stuff and you just keep it moving, you keep it funny, and you keep it, you don't tell the family secrets. But so it was really threading that needle of making sure it was a fun read, rooting people on. I grew up with this wonderful mom and this kind of not so great dad, and that. Just I wanted readers to know that you can thrive and you can survive even if you have somebody in your scope who's kind of hard on you or is not necessarily cheering for you, that you can still cheer for yourself and have a happy ending. So, yeah.
Regarding the timing, so your mom at the very end, you already came on my podcast and talked about it.
So, all right. So basically, I tried to sell this book for years. I mean, this thing I have been trying to sell. There's been various versions of this proposal. And for years. And then, my dad died 3 years ago, and it's sort of I was like, oh, okay, I can maybe make it a little more honest. So it's one per. Okay, cool. So then there was a different version of the. I have been trying to sell this for years, and then that didn't sell, and then somebody else reached out to me in the summer of 2018. A new book agent was like, I want to do a book with you. I was like, all right. So I wrote another proposal, made it slightly different. I'm like, good luck, sir. I've tried to sell this fucking thing before. And then he was starting to get traction. People were interested. And I went back to Atlanta to film Insatiable. And I was there doing the first episode of season 2. And my mom died. And out of the blue, she had a heart attack making breakfast. She just died. And so I had to go home. I went home for the funeral the next day into this tiny town. And I get this email on the way to her funeral saying, from the book, like this certain publisher, and they were like, Arden, we hope you're having a great week. We want to do a book with you. Like, ta-da! And like, it was, and the drive, this town is so tiny. It's called Little Compton, Rhode Island. Like, this was like a 2-minute drive. So between my house and the church, it was like a 30-second drive. I get this email that my book has sold and that I have 6 months to write it. So my mom's died. She was barely in the proposal. I do the funeral. I have to go fly back to Atlanta. I'm alone in an Airbnb, and I'm like newly grieving again. And and my mom was great. And I have to write this fucking book. And I will say, I feel like the gift of it is, I feel like it made it more glass half full because she was so great. And like, I don't know if you've lost a parent or anything, but like one of the things that is odd is, and particularly with somebody who was very popular, like she was well liked in the town, was that everyone was telling me these funny stories about her. And I didn't even see how she would be a fun literary character because she was just such a great mom. I didn't see, like, my dad was clearly like an interesting character, but she was just my mom. And there were all these specific things that people were telling me that it became her book. And my friend Lisa Delarios, I don't know if she's a stand-up, and she read it, and she knew my mom, and she goes, Arden, this isn't your memoir. This is your momoir. Like, you wrote your momoir. It's your mom's book. So writing it while like newly crazy and grieving actually was like this beautiful experience because I would sort of go visit her every day on the page. And it wasn't like, actually when I finished writing it, I burst into tears because I felt like the conversation was over.
Aww.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was just sort of like, I had the fun of all these specific, because she would just like let us stay up late and let us play hooky and like everything magic, everything that is fun and magic about me was programmed by her. And I was sort of cataloging that. And so it was it was like me and my girl Janet would show up every day at the page. And like, it was really like this sort of, it wasn't unpleasant because actually like a happy thing. It literally wasn't till it was done. I was like, oh, I have to like put her away. Like, it was hard to put her away.
Yeah. You in the final chapter, you say that it's been a month since your mom has died. And so that's when I was like trying to put it together. Like, did you write, some of it was written before, right? Or did you write
Some
the
of
whole
it was
thing
written
in that month?
No, God, no.
Because my word.
Crazy. No. I do not write in order. Okay. I do not write in order. My friend calls me organized chaos. So there were certain chapters that were really hard for me to write. And so the way that I had a few chapters written for the proposal, and I had some banked from various proposals over the years. So I had some chapters, which also then changed, so I had at least, but I had material to tweak. But no, I do not write in the alphabet in order. It was literally like, for me and for anybody out there that's a creative person, like, I did not get up and on my days off just write from 10 and end at 4. Like, no, it's like a battle. It's like the bowl, like, you stay over there, computer, and I'll stay over here. Like, me approaching it's like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm not that disciplined. I mean, it was like 25 minutes at a time, and then I would like black out. And so I would start with the ones that were sort of easier or fluff. There was sort of no rhyme or reason why something I did not want to write my career chapter. It felt, my brain kept being like, who do you think? Like, blah, blah, blah. I'm Meryl Streep. Like, it was like, who cares? And I kept having to think, no, Arden, like, if you were a little girl growing up in like a small town, you would want to know, like, how did you get on TV? Like, so, and that would be the chapter I would want to read. But I had a real negative voice being like, that's so arrogant than any, But no, her chapter just, I knew, because I just lost my dad, that like there's almost this weird, I knew how the book was going to end. I knew it was going to end. I knew I couldn't, this sounds terrible, but like I knew she wasn't going to die till the end. I knew that was going to be the last chapter. And I knew when my dad died, there's almost this weird, awful, but magical you have these weird superpowers for a couple months afterwards. You're in an altered state that you think you will never forget, but you do. I'm sure it's probably similar to giving birth or something. Like you
I actually think I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think I know what you mean from my experiences with grief. I have not lost parents, but I have grieved before.
Yeah.
But that no, you say what you mean.
Well, I mean, I just felt like I knew I needed to write it in that state when it was so pure and when she was still talking to me. Do you know what I mean? Like she was still around. And I felt like I knew that that's where the plane was landing. And I knew, just because I'm fairly resilient, I knew at some point I would be okay again. And I knew the part of, like, the portal of me that was, like, open to her, I knew had to write it then. That it was, like, me and her, and we, because you can't, you know, for anything, there's grief over anything, you know, or these huge experiences in life. You think, I will never forget how this feels. And I think just out of self-protection, you do forget fully how it feels. And so I kind of also wanted to get it over with. It was also like, if I could get this chapter out of the way, then I could kind of move on to the fun stuff, because it was so like, where did she go? Like, where is she? You know, and I knew, like, eventually I would get used to the fact, like, well, she's gone. So that's when I wrote it. And then
you said that you knew that eventually you'd be okay. Where are you on the journey to okayness?
You know, I think I'm pretty good. I will say yesterday I was having to do the audiobook, and it was weird. Like, I haven't got to the final chapter yet, but I did. It was weird, like, what got me. I was just, you know, it was one of the ones where it was just a random chapter talking about her bringing me to New York and taking me on the subway and showing me the graffiti and going to Benihana's. And I burst into tears. And, like, there was something about, then I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not so fully, you know what I mean? It was like, it wasn't the big thing. It was like, I couldn't get through talking about, like, looking at the ladies of the night in Times Square. Like, I couldn't get through that paragraph. I kept bursting into tears, and I was like, oh, okay, so there's still, you know, but generally, I'm not like crazy anymore. I think it's, you get to, it's almost now, like, it's almost pleasant, like, thinking of her. It's not new information. And, like, she's pretty noisy now around, like, the release of the book. Like, I think she's super into it. So she's like circling in, like, a hovercraft. So, you know, but I mean, I guess that's also what I wanted to say. Like, you know, in any form, things happen to people, and, like, you can still be you can have the worst thing happen to you and still be yourself. Fundamentally, you can still laugh. I still had a great year last year. Like, I think if you are, you know, and that's what I also want. And it's interesting timing, because I feel like the world is now kind of collectively grieving their normal lives, grieving their friends. Some people have lost people, you know, grieving they're going to work, just any normalcy. And so I wanted to, like, there's actually kind of like a recipe of, like, you know, it may not be your best month ever, but you don't need to make it your worst. And, like, here's what I did, while also letting myself process the feelings. But here's, like, the physical here is the toolbox that I did to put Humpty Dumpty back together. And this is what worked for me.
Yeah, I thought that was very generous and helpful of you to share that stuff for anyone who is newly grieving. Just a little bit of a guide for how to do it.
Well, it's like one of those things where, and again, like, when you read the book, like, you know, there's so many. I grew up in, like, just this funny New England household that's just this silly. They didn't really talk about feelings. So never in my life would I think part of my journey is I realized, having lost two people back to back, it's like, oh, I sort of feel like somebody needs to help normalize this a little bit. Like, I think people are so afraid of it. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And people are afraid when it happens to somebody near them, like that, you know, just to know, I mean, it was so eye-opening that my worst fear could happen and I could still be okay. Like, that was like, and you can be okay. You can be okay. That's shocking.
And your worst fear being losing your mom or losing your mom in the way you lost her?
Losing her it was exactly my worst fear of how I lost her. All of it. So, and again, now that this year is happening, I actually think I was spared because she never washed her hands. She was a social butterfly. Like, I think it's better, I don't think she was afraid. I don't think she even knew it was happening. I think she just was making breakfast. I mean, I think it was literally like lights out.
Right.
So to me, it's like, who would have predicted 2020 and who would have predicted? So it's, again, you never know the big plan. Who would have ever thought I would actually be grateful that happened last year? Like the thought of worrying about her alone in a field in Rhode Island now, like that I would actually rather have had this happen like this than be worried about her alone in a field.
Let's talk about your dad a bit.
Dude.
Very interesting, quirky character.
Yeah.
And yet, so I had you on. This is your third time on my show, and I know
girl.
the first time we didn't really talk about the book at all, but you had talked about how he was just like not really into being a dad. Like it was definitely not a positive portrait of him that you painted when you came on the show. Not that it was super negative or anything, but I just got the sense that you said actually something that you discovered was that like all women in comedy have dad issues.
Did you have a tricky dad?
Yes. Tricky parents. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. And again, that's what I wanted the book. Like I really think most funny women I know have some kind of a quirk often with usually their dad, but sometimes the mom. There's usually some quirk. Once in a while, there's Lauren Lapkus has lovely parents. Like she has a lovely dad and so it's don't worry if you have nice parents and you want to do comedy. It's possible. But I will say most women I know that are in comedy. So I should say, just for the listeners, my parents met at work. They were coworkers, and they were like literally. They got married on a dare. They were trying to get vacation time, and that is how I came in. So it literally, if you went on a honeymoon, you got 2 extra weeks vacation. So my dad proposed, like they were all out drinking, and they were trying to like screw the man, and he was like, Janet, and my dad's name was Willie, my mom's name was Janet. He was like, Janet, let's get married. I'll take us down to South America for a month. We'll come back and we'll get it annulled. And then my mom like upped the ante the next day and was like, okay, I'll do it, but I don't want to get it annulled. And she was like Doris Day and like super fun. So it was an interesting thing. Like I couldn't figure out like this combo. And then I didn't learn about how they got married until I was older. Like, I mean, not old, but like in high school. But it added up. It was like, how do you have this most wonderful, magical woman? And no, so part of the thing with Adair, he was very open from the time my brother and I were kids. He would be like, she wanted 4 kids. He wanted 0. So they settled on 2. And then he would just be like, I told your mother if she wanted to have kids, she had to deal with you. And it was just like, the good news is he wasn't dealing with us much. Like we were really we were her kids, but he was still around. What flavor tricky was your parents or are your parents?
They listen sometimes, especially now that I'm on YouTube. So I have to be careful.
Oh, boy.
But it's okay. It's okay.
It definitely was freeing writing the book. But I was also had to be like, I also didn't want to smear anybody's name that can't defend them. It was like a thread. I was like, let me check my motives of like, what am I saying?
Right.
Okay. So hi, Mr. and Mrs. Rosen. I hope you're not listening to this one.
Well, I can say, because I think that my dad would acknowledge this, rageful. So my dad was rageful.
Hard. That's scary.
Definitely mellowed out, in now he's not that way at all. But so a lot of just,
that's hard.
Still when people yell around me, I feel it in my body.
So were you like hyper vigilant? Did you have to like take the temper? Yeah. My dad
still like that.
Me too. I know. I mean, so you had to take the temperature of the room and just see what you were dealing with.
Yes. And
that's hard.
A lot of triangulation, and I still it's a fight for me to hear stuff and just go, I'm just going to listen. You're just telling me your stuff. Like, I want to get in and I want to fix it and all that.
Right. Yeah. It's hard. I mean, it's an interesting, I remember my friend saying to me, like, anybody's parents, like, your parents push your buttons because they installed your buttons.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to get, like, even if you have all the, like, tools in the world, like, you still, I defy you to go for, like, a 10-day trip to your childhood bedroom and not completely regress.
Totally.
It's hard. It's hard. It's an interesting thing when you get out into the world and you're like, oh, not everybody's like that. It's definitely looking around. Where did you grow up?
Orange County, California. I was born in Northern California, grew up in Orange County, and that's where they still are. Yeah, I have I have a younger sister, and then I have 2 older brothers from my dad's first marriage.
Were you
who are like
tight
11
with...
years older.
So they're much...
Yeah, so my brothers lived with us till I was 3, and then they moved and lived with their mom, and that was tough on me because they had been there all the time, and then they were gone.
Right.
And then I am tight with my sister, who's 4 years younger.
That's good. I think it's good to have somebody around.
Yes, for sure. Go ahead.
What's your mom like?
She is, how would I describe her?
Listening.
She is listening.
Listening.
And here's what I'll say. All I ever want in this world is to be understood, to be able to like say how I feel and to have someone understand. Like, in fact, there was a whole thing where my husband was talking to my dad and he's like, what I've learned about her is all she wants is to feel understood. And my parents just are unable to hear anything that makes them feel guilty or bad and to ever say like, oh, I get that. I'm sorry. Instead, you're bad for making them feel bad. It's you, you're bad, and I feel like my mom has actually progressed to the point where now she can deliver a zinger that came out of nowhere that like totally fucks me up, and then I'll get a text from her saying like, I'm so sorry, I don't know why I said that, and then I'm like, it's totally okay, now I feel like all put back together. Right. So I feel like we've actually made some headway.
That's good. Mm-hmm. That's really good.
Yeah.
Good job, Mom. That's really good. That's
if
good.
If you're listening, good job. So
good job, Mom.
So to go back to your dad, though. So I had this sense of your dad as like not Father of the Year, but then I read the book, still not Father of the Year, but I felt like it was actually a pretty compassionate telling of him. Would you agree?
I had a friend who is like a fancy playwright who's like a Pulitzer Prize. Not my friend Tom, and I would just kept checking on him, and I was like, I could have really thrown him under the bus if I'd wanted to, and I just kept, at first I was like, am I sparing him too much? Like, but I thought, and he kept just saying, Arden, check your motives. What story are you telling? And like, how do you want to tell it? And it was also like, it was like, okay, this is my story, not his story. People get the gist. They don't need to hear the war stories. This is not Angela's Ashes. Like, people get the gist of like, he's pretty rough and rude. And just sort of, where do you want to put your focus? Like, how much... Because I know just the way my body feels. Like when I recount, like when I get into the nitty gritty, nasty details, I feel negative. I feel bad. And like the reality is who I turned out to be and what my life is. And not in a Pollyanna way. Like, I will meet anybody one-on-one and if you ask me, I will tell you, but it was sort of giving real estate to stuff that was his problem. Like, it's not about me. Like, I just flew into that house. I could have been whatever young lady flew into that house would have had the same shit put at her. And so I feel like the more I gave him real estate with his behavior, I felt like the more it became sort of putting it on me that's who I am. Like, and so I really just kept saying, like, I want to make sure that I'm honest that it was gnarly and it was tricky, but there was also so much magic through. It's interesting how, like, you know, my mom did all the heavy lifting and we had so much fun and there was so much beauty and so much magic. And like this person who didn't really try can so easily get all of the attention. And it's like he sort of didn't deserve that. You know, and it's like, how about the person who's really trying to parent? How about she gets the award and like, how about she gets the book? You know, and so I think that's why it makes, to me, you know, I'm honest about it, but like, look at this person over here who's doing so much, and like, let's acknowledge that too.
Can we just talk about one dad story though?
Anything.
When I don't know if it was your first TV appearance.
It was my first sitcom.
Okay, he said because this part stuck with me.
This was brutal. This was brutal.
Well, you tell it.
So I grew up in this tiny town. It had a general store. We have no stoplights. A rumor has it, for a lot of my childhood, we had an illiterate chief of police. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was the rumor. I mean, it's literally couldn't be smaller. It's so cute. And like, I just had dreams of like being on TV, and I actually executed. I mean, I had no connections. And when I was 22 years old, I was cast as a regular on the NBC sitcom Working with Fred Savage that ran for 2 years. And it was my first big job, and it moved me out to Los Angeles. And so it was like it was at the height of must-see TV. I mean, it was a huge deal, like picked up as a regular. It wasn't just like standing as an extra in the background. Like, I was a cast member. And so in my mind, when you like growing up, you know, I thought everyone on TV lived in like lifestyles of the rich and famous. I thought everybody on TV had like a mansion. You know, I was in this tiny little apartment. I just thought I thought everything would be okay if I could just get onto television. And so, and that everything inside me I would feel good. And so, and like, by the way, it's okay to be excited and proud. I was so proud. And the night that it aired, nobody called me. No one called me. It was the strangest thing. And so I called home the next day and looking for my mom, and my dad answered. And I was like, hey, Willie. He was like, hey. And I was like, did you see the show last night? And he goes, yeah, I saw it. And I said, well, what did you think? And he goes, I thought it stunk and you stunk with it.
Oh,
I mean, what a piece
devastating.
of shit. What a piece of shit. I think he was really competitive with me. I think he was so jealous. Yeah. I think he was so competitive and like threatened and wanting to crush it. Like it was,
I mean, no wonder it was hard for you to write the career chapters, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, who do you think you are? Yeah. Who do you think? You know, it was really. He was my accountant at the time. I had to fire him. It was terrible. But you know, it was definitely. You know, you should know for the listeners, 80% of the book is like a fun beach read.
It really is. You talk about
80% of the book is a fun beach read. It's not all just abusive dad and death.
No, that's the thing that's kind of like, it's almost like surreptitious the way the abusive dad I didn't even use that term, although that is what that is. But that's what I was saying about like, it's this whimsical, delightful story, and yet there is this emotional level that it operates on that you're almost not even totally aware of, you know, until afterwards. And I'm just like, oh, like
I know. I can always tell where people are in the book because I'll be getting texts. It's like, ha 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 ha. Oh, like, you know. I mean, I think it's this fun book, and I wanted people to feel less alone. Like I wanted it to be hopeful. I wanted people to feel like you can shine and soar and thrive. Like that's why I kind of outed my dad, was like, I wanted people to feel like you can laugh and be free and go like live your dreams, even if you have somebody who's rude to you. Like you can protect yourself and you can be okay and you can make it. I mean, that is what I wanted. That is why I put it in there, was like not everybody is dealt the perfect hand. Most people aren't.
Most aren't.
Most people have
Not
some
everyone
complications.
is Lauren Lapkus.
I know most people. I mean, God bless her. I mean, I truly was like, oh my God, you're the unicorn. You're the only one with like the nice parents. But like, that you can. I wanted it to be hopeful, and like, I wanted it to be a fun read, and I wanted people to know it wasn't perfect, and that's okay. Like, that's okay.
Speaking of segue, if you think you may be depressed or you're feeling anxious, stressed, or overwhelmed, BetterHelp offers licensed professional counselors who are trained to listen and help. Talk with your counselor in a private online environment at your own convenience from wherever you're comfortable. BetterHelp counselors have expertise in a broad range of areas such as anxiety, grief, difficulty sleeping, LGBT matters, tricky parents, self-esteem, anger.
I'm going to call them.
BetterHelp can give you access to help that may not be available in your area. You simply fill out a questionnaire to assess specific needs and get matched with your counselor in under 48 hours. And here's the part that one of the things I think is really great about this. If for any reason you're unhappy with your counselor, you can request a new one at any time at no additional charge. I think that's great.
Get the right one.
Because
I think the right one.
And I think people starting up in like a virtual way might feel like, well, what if I don't, click with this person? You are not committed at all. Join 1 million+ people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced BetterHelp counselor. BetterHelp is an affordable option, and our listeners get 10% off your first month with the discount code BESTFRIEND. Get started today at betterhelp.com/bestfriend. That's BetterHelp, better, HELP.com/bestfriend. Talk to a therapist online and get help. Okay, and we are back. One of the things that I thought was super fun about the book was just all the references to the miscellany of the 80s that I feel that it brought so much back for me. And not enough. I don't encounter enough people talking about the movie Angel. I don't encounter enough people talking about Bermuda bags.
Yes.
So Bermuda bags take up, speaking of real estate, I feel like they occupy more real estate in my brain than they should. I didn't know the name of them. So I've gone around for all these years being like, do you remember those purses with the wooden handles that have and not enough people know what I'm talking about, but now I know the name.
It's a Bermuda bag. And I got to say, for like Gen Zers out there, let me tell you what, I feel like we should bring this back. So it was like this wooden handle. Yeah. And it had sort of like a white sheet material, like a muslin, like a white muslin purse thing that had like buttons around the top. And then you would buy different covers for it that you would put over the muslin and like,
so you can leave all your stuff in it.
You can leave all your shit in it.
Match it to your outfit.
And then you match it to your outfit, and you could make your own covers, and they would button on, and it was not quite a clutch, but it wasn't an over the shoulder. It's like a wooden, it to me is so retro, kind of like you could wear it with like a clog, like there's something, I can't believe people haven't brought them back. Because I feel like if you started like a hipster Bermuda bag line on Etsy, like if you got, you got some, so like Zoe Deutsch or somebody out there, like some cool kid rocking it. They're get the equivalent of like the strawberry dress with the Bermuda bag. You can't go wrong with that.
This was not in your book, but I associate it with the Bermuda bag because I had a babysitter who was a tri-delt who had both. Do you remember the twisty beads?
No.
Oh, they were like a long string of small beads, and you'd buy a bunch of them in different colors, and then you'd twist them, and you'd buy a clasp and like put it around your neck, and it was like wearing like a huge cord around your neck.
You know what? I know the seed beads that you're talking about, and I feel like we would buy the long, thin things, and I feel like we would make like friendship bracelets and sort of so good. Or also like beaded Native American fringe earrings. Also terrific.
Going to the bead store was like a big part of
the
my
bead
youth.
store. I had like a bead kit
Oh,
company.
you did?
I sold like bead kits where I would get like plastic like fishing tackle boxes and fill them with beads. It was I was a young entrepreneur, a young boss bitch in Rhode Island.
I love the idea of a box with small compartments with stuff in
Yes.
it. It delights me.
Thank you.
Okay. There is a scene in your book where you are dating the man who became your husband. Surprise twist, became your husband.
Yes, honey.
And he starts talking to another woman.
Yeah.
You become convinced that she
Yes.
is trying to steal your man.
She was.
Okay. You go a little, you have an overreaction, I would say, or maybe
yeah.
you feel it's an appropriate reaction. But anyway, I think that some guys, like, how is it that you were able to have that reaction? Tell him you're gonna kill him, right?
I
yet you still
did a
married
few
him.
things. So basically, let me just for the listeners, I'd had every guy I ever dated stolen from me. Every guy I ever dated would eventually sleep with one of my friends. So that's when I was like, I might need to date better guys. Maybe I need better friends. Okay, so I worked on that. I got better friends. Da 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 da. I met this nice guy. I'd never dated a nice guy. I didn't quite. He was cute. I was very suspicious of him, but I liked him. And then so we went to this party, and he was really tall, and he was talking to this other really tall, elegant lady, and it was not at the smokehouse, but it was at like this equivalent in like Burbank, and she was wearing like Chanel, and I was wearing a T-shirt that said Arden, I like to party, and I had like Chrissy pigtails, and like they were literally talked all night, and I'm so, like he was really cute. I know I'm not a fucking it. You as a woman, you have to agree. You know when somebody's hitting on your man, like you're not.
Yeah.
It's a chemical react, like an animal instinct. So over the years, I'd watched it happen so many times, and I would just slink away and never stand up for myself. So this guy is worth the fight. So I paced up to him, and at first I was like, I will fucking kill you. And he was like, what? And then I went away, and I was like, my friend Erin Hayes, who is on Children's Hospital, she ran me like a quarter horse outside. And I had a couple of sea breezes running around. And then I was like, I'm going to go back in. And they were like, again, so much taller than me. And I'm like tiptoeing up and down. And I literally looked her in the eye, glared her in the eye, rubbed my ass up and down his thigh, and said to her face, I'm spraying my turf. I'm using my inky spray, and I'm spraying my turf. And how did he not? I mean, most people, he should have left. He should have. I mean, that to me is grounds for that. I was a real red flag at that moment in time. I wouldn't say it was my best moment. I wouldn't, nobody wants to read about your best stuff. They want to hear your most horrible. And somehow he just found it hilarious. He was just, I think if I did that every weekend, that would be a different situation. But I think he just thought I was an idiot.
Flattered.
Just like, you're such an idiot. Like, I was such an idiot that he found it funny and was just like, oh, you're an idiot. Okay. Like, which, I guess it's the right guy for me. He should have left.
I thought it was the way you tell it is hilarious. I was laughing out loud.
Dude, I'd had one too many people taken from me, and LA is hard to date in. So to find like a nice guy and like watch have again, I was like, I'm so sick of people just stealing a guy in front of me. I was like my cry of the Kalahari, like, no, this little blonde ball coming to spray my turf.
All right, we have some questions from listeners, but first I wanted to ask. So Debbie Ryan wrote the foreword, and I actually underlined something in here because I wanted to ask you. It's kind of just for my own edification.
Yes.
I want to know. Okay, so Debbie says, she's talking about you, and she says, she's held my hand and taught me to listen for the difference between my little monster voices and the ones that actually want to help me.
Yeah.
This is something I'm trying to work on, trying to just like connect with because that was for me, a result, and I suspect maybe for you too a little bit, a result of my childhood was I really have trouble trusting my intuition.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can't even hear it.
Yes.
And so I don't do it anymore, but I used to spend any decision I was making, I would have to like ask the advice of so many, like how exhausting I must have been to have to like, and so I'm trying to connect with, but anyway, how does one determine the difference between the monster voices and like the true voices?
I mean, I'll be really honest with you. I was just having this conversation about, I really feel like one of the gifts, and again, a lot, that's why I put a lot of stuff in the book of like, this is what I did, I really feel like a lot of the gift of adulthood and what I've worked on is, and I think I really believe this for most people, I really believe deep down inside that we have good instincts, but that we're afraid to listen to them. And I'm going to circle back, like, and then I'll come back around to your, like,
okay.
So one of the gifts of, not to be a downer, but one of the gifts of grief, and again, one of the reasons I wrote that chapter so fast is you kind of don't have much skin. So it's very clear. Your body has a reaction, like, and it goes away. I wish that part, like, it's one of the weird superpowers in the good way of grief is like, you have a visceral reaction. You know who you want to be with, who you don't want to be with, what sounds fun, what doesn't sound fun, what movies you want to watch, what you do. Like, you just have you can't. I'm such a people pleaser. You literally cannot people please. You cannot fake it. And I feel like particularly as women, I think we're so brought up to kind of make sure everyone else is okay that, to me, I think oftentimes it was just fear of like, if I get really, really still and if I wasn't worried about hurting somebody's feelings, I really feel like your body deep down inside knows what the right thing is, who the right thing is, what feels healthy and good, what doesn't, but we don't give ourselves permission to make it be okay to listen to those voices. And so, I mean, one thing I do, like I'll go on walks, like going out, something about moving around, because my head is really active, and I do. I mean, the way I wrote the chapter about, like, who cares? Nobody cares. It's like, okay, that sounds like maybe somebody else's voice, like, usually if it's really negative or really fearful of, like, what are people going to think? I don't know, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like going for a hike or going for a walk and getting really quiet, taking a bath, like, just sort of sometimes even just like writing stuff out in the morning and just like just sort of like asking whatever you want to call it, the world, just for an intuition. Oftentimes it's not necessarily what you want to hear. Like, it's just like, I don't want to deal with that. I want, because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We want to do the right thing. It's like, it's very fear-based. And I guess it's really just learning just to listen to what makes your tail wag, listen to what makes you happy, like pay attention to who feels good, what feels exciting, and and look, we all have our little vices and monsters inside of us, that tell us like, no, go have that cake at 2 a.m. What I mean? Like, but it's like, okay, wait, is this the boogeyman inside of me, or is this like,
right.
That's how I don't know what kind of stuff do you struggle with?
So if I have conflict with someone, I, like you, have a lot of trouble dealing with it in the moment, unless it's so, I realized, because I always thought I was someone who had trouble dealing with stuff in the moment. However, I realized a pattern of like, if it's so egregious, like if I feel like someone is just really, really out of line,
yeah,
then I am able to like defend myself in the moment. It's when I'm not sure, when there's a little bit of passive aggressiveness maybe, or when I feel like maybe, like, I never want to be inappropriate. I never want to be out of line. I never want to be aggressive or wrong or bad or, all this stuff swirling around that paralyzes me. So then I have to kind of go take it and like be alone with it and try to listen to like, what is my gut telling me about this situation? So that's hard for me.
I'll tell you one, like, I really have allowed, like, I will say I don't ever have the words in the moment. And I will say one of the gifts of that is I find that people generally, and I have a very high voice. So then I feel like people can't hear me when I'm heated, like, so one of the gifts of having delayed reactions, like fight or flight, I am full flight. I just leave my body. Yeah. I'm always so shocked that something's happening that I'm like, whoa. But one of the gifts is I usually can then reason it out with somebody else, get really clear, see if it's something that's like an old thing in me that's getting pushed, like that sort of, if it's hysterical, it's historical, like is this something, is this really happening in 2020 or is this something from like 1987? You know, it's like, okay, but like, okay, let's say it is real and it is happening. Then I can get very clear. And then I've just allowed that it's never too late to go. And if I have to make an apology, I can just say, hey, like, you know, I've had some feelings and I felt like I did something and I just want to do, like, I did this recently with the book coming out. You know, I mentioned a name that I thought was funny, but then I realized that I didn't ask permission to use the name. And so I sent them like a card and they were so happy to they were happy to get the book and so happy I'd sent the card, and which was nice because otherwise I would have just avoided them for life and felt ashamed, you know, But then when people, like if somebody steps on your toes or whatever, you know, I try to give, like my dad would just say the most disgusting stuff. And I would try to give somebody one benefit of the doubt and be like, hey, maybe you didn't realize it. But when that happened, like I know I didn't say something in the moment, but I'm just letting you know because I would hope that if I did something, you would let me know. And just allowing that I don't have to do it in the moment. I don't have to clean stuff up in the moment. And that usually if I'm doing it, I'm not as emotional. Like by the time I'm going and doing something, I'm not like at an 11. And then most people are like, oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry. You know, and then like, but it's hard. Conflict is the worst. I hate conflict.
When it's messy.
When
it's messy.
It's
like if
awful.
someone's just an out and out asshole, it's so much cleaner.
Oh my God. Conflict is it is weird when it's like complicated or if it's like a business thing or if you have like a work thing. I hate the uncomfortable because some people are really good at fighting. Some people love a disagreement and I don't stand a chance with that. When people are like, what do you mean by that? It's like, nothing. Forget I brought it up. Nothing. I don't mean anything. Nothing.
I think I'm always afraid that the other person is going to be like, you know what? You're too much trouble. I'm done.
Right.
Like, and that is a very historical and unrealistic expectation in like the situations that I then take that fear into.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, it's, you know, being a person on earth interacting with people is complicated, you know?
It really is.
And everybody, and I have to just keep remember, like everybody, and particularly this year, everybody has something, you know? So it's like, I try to give people a pandemic pass of like, okay, everyone's doing the best that they can. Everyone's a little extra. Everyone's not feeling great. So,
right.
You know, and I would say that my social circles have, it's not that I don't love people, but I feel like I'm chatting regularly to less and less. Like I've just got a few people that I talk to a lot, and that's who I talk to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like at the beginning there was all this like, we're having a Zoom happy hour.
Yeah,
no. And I don't even think people are doing that anymore.
Oh God, no. It feels like in LA people are like hanging out, and I'm so afraid of COVID that I always feel so lame when I get invited to stuff, but I'm like, I'm not. No way am I coming here. I'll see
now.
you.
Are you being invited to things where they're going to be socially distanced, or is it like just come to our house and have dinner?
I haven't been invited to a house for dinner, no, but I have been invited to things inside that I'm like, I'm not doing that. I've gone to. Basically, the person I see the most is Lauren Lopkis, and it's always sometimes we have dinner on my lawn very, very, very far away, and then we immediately put masks back on, and she brings her own food and has her own utensils and container. And because we're both, and I know that she's equally as much as like the cautious kitty that I am. So it's like two sort of super freaks hanging out like in bubbles on opposite sides of a lawn, and that's who I see.
Have you been working?
I did I've said no to a few things. I was offered a movie in England. I feel like in the United States with SAG, there's more codes than what was happening. Mm-hmm. They were only testing once a week. And there was a lot of scenes that were like crowds, like me in a car with 10 people sitting on a lap. And there was like scenes in a booth in a crowded bar. And I thought, once a week, like, I know there's less cases there, but I don't want to get COVID. Like, I wanted to do it, but I said no. I did 5 episodes of the Meredith Vieira game show, 25 Words or Less. They did it all in one day. Everybody got tested on site. You got ready at home. There was no hair or makeup. There was no mic packs. Everyone was in their like own booth, and then they were mic'd from above. And then she had her own game show set built in her basement in New York.
Wow.
And then they zoomed in. So that felt, and there was no like catering. They had boxes of takeout. So that actually felt like, oh, okay, I could do that. Like that was, so I'm picking and choosing. And it's just mostly, so here's my question. So it's mostly been like launching the book, which I never thought would be launched during a pandemic. So it's been an interesting, what was it like for you? Like giving birth to your book, like getting the word out, being worried, like were you worried about hurting people's feelings? What was it like, all of it, like the marketing and the material? What was your experience launching your book?
Well, more in-person podcasts and things like that.
Yeah.
And then hurting people's feelings with the stuff in the book. You mean? So my book is a collection of columns. I had a syndicated column for a period of time, and it's a collection of those columns. So it was material that had already been published.
So if it's going to hurt,
in a different form.
You would have already had to deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't fresh new stuff. But please buy it anyway.
Hell yeah, you should buy it. Allison's
it's so fresh and new that it's timeless, really.
Absolutely. Allison, if you love Allison, you're going to love her book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. But first buy Arden's book, Little Miss Little Compton.
It's real. And if you go to ardenmarinebook.com, you can get a signed copy and a canvas Little Miss Little Compton tote bag that's actually really cute that I designed. You can get it for the first. It's cute, right?
I love the tote. I love it. I love the whole package you put together.
I went for like the bougie tote too. It's not a thin cotton tote. It's like a thick canvas tote that you could use as like a beach bag. So that comes free with the price of the book for the first. It's only the first 250 people. So, and it's a signed copy. So get them before they're sold out.
I did a reading at, is it called the Last Bookstore?
Yeah, downtown.
And yeah, that was really fun. It was neat to contrast the experience of a live podcast versus a live reading. Like the questions that people asked were so astute, and like that I really felt like, oh my God, these people like are totally picking up what I'm laying down.
Yeah.
You're doing a virtual reading, right?
I'm doing, yes. So Lauren and I, we're going to do, again, I can't, normally I would have been like on a book tour and doing readings and doing stand-up shows and like, so I can't do that. So, but I'm a festive gal and I wanted to do something. So we're doing a virtual book release party / like reading, and it's like a variety show. And I'm going to read from the book, but it's also like a full show. And it's going to be me and Lauren Lapkus. If you don't know who that is, and we keep referring to her, but she was in The Wrong Missy, that Netflix movie. She was Missy. She's also in Orange is the New Black. So it's at Dynasty Typewriter. It's Saturday, September 26th at 5 p.m. Pacific. But if you buy your tickets in advance, the link is live for a week. So if you can't watch it then, it's just $5. And then we're also having Brian Safi, who's the host of Throwing Shade. He's going to be on. And then Rob Benedict from Supernatural is going to be on, and he's going to be playing a song. My brother's going to be there. So it's going to be like a full variety show and reading. It's a book release party. It should be really fun. $5. And if you get your book through the dynastytypewriter.com website, you can actually get a custom signed book. So if you wanted to give it as a gift, if it's like, Dear Allison, blah, 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 like there's a place for you to say, keep it PG-13, but tell me who you want me to write it out to, and you can get an actual custom signed book to you.
So are you going to actually be at Dynasty Typewriter?
No, we are. So I've been watching some of their virtual shows to get ready. They are doing it it feels like a show. Like they really have figured out how to adapt. And so we are not going to be at Dynasty, but it will not feel like a Zoom call. Like you will feel like you're watching a Zoom call, and you can interact with us. You can email us, and come on, guys, it's $5 and it's live for a week. So come to the party because I can't come to you.
Love it.
I can't come to you.
All right, let's take some questions that we got on Patreon. Again, I'm on Patreon. Here's my Patreon plug. Lots of fun stuff, behind the scenes content.
Oh, yeah.
This video's on YouTube, but the videos of the Thursday shows are on Patreon.
I'll be there. I'll be there
you'll
on
be
this
there.
next coming Thursday.
That's right. And I'm now doing 3 to 4 bonus episodes a week. I just can't bring myself to commit to weekly.
Are you serious? You're doing 3 to 4 a week?
3 to 4.
That's
right.
a lot.
It really is. But
That's
people
like
demand
Patreon.
it.
That's the Patreon you want to join. That is a lot.
That's right. Patreon.com/Allison Rosen. I'm looking for the song that I play before we do questions. There it is. Here we go.
You're doing great.
When we ask, they send them in. They're wondering how you have been. So thanks so much for answering these questions from our fans.
All right. Lindsay Bunell or Bunnell wants to know, I love Arden so much. She's such an amazing actress, and I love her podcast about The Bachelor. I've noticed on the podcast, she talks about past relationships, but very rarely discusses her current love life partner. Does she worry about discussing it, or is it just a matter of privacy? Will we learn about it in her book at all?
Yes, you will learn about it in my book. Not too much. I am with a shy guy who, yeah, so I feel like I have had I really like shy people. A lot of my best friends are shy. And so I intentionally, I think also part of it was, I think part of it was having so many boyfriends taken from me and I used to just like hand them away to people. I think when I first started dating Dan, I just kept it quiet. It was like, because I think I used to talk about like so-and-so's so great, and then everybody would be like, oh really, and then so I think it was a combo of my own past coupled with just not wanting to make somebody a joke or a story of like, this is a person, I'm a very silly gal who's all over the place, and like this is a person who's never once like, wait, you're going to Atlanta again? Like where are you going to do stand up? Like it's a person who's always like, go have fun. And so I sort of give the privacy, like give the respect of somebody who lets me run free. I leave them alone.
That's really nice. When I first met, so I have a Daniel who's a Dan.
Hi, Dan the man.
Yeah, when I first met him, I remember he was like, just so you know, like, I don't think I'd ever want to be interviewed. Like, I'm just not into all that.
Yes.
And now he's a regular on my podcast.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. So. It's an interesting, some people talk about it all the time. It's just, it's just like when somebody's kind of shy, like disrespecting, like they actually are for real shy, and rather than being like, come on, it's like, no, they really don't. Like, they actually don't want that.
Do you consider yourself an extrovert?
I think I am a shy extrovert. I don't know. I think socially, people make me nervous. So I think I'm a noisy, shy person. I appear extroverted. And I think there's a part of me, yes. Obviously, like, in a group setting, I can, if I'm relaxed around you, absolutely. But it takes me a minute to feel safe with people. I get nervous around people.
Whitney C says, what's the last technological difficulty she had? Parentheses, asks the woman who was booted unceremoniously off her own Zoom mid-sentence today, leaving high schoolers unsupervised until she got back.
Oh my God. I am the most, I have to tell you, I have the worst technological luck of anybody. Like, to the point, Dan is convinced I was born with a metal plate in my head or like a magnet. Because I will have issues. I cannot connect. I can't get cell service at my house. And I live in a flat area. There's no mountain. There's no reason. Everyone else can get calls here. And I will bring my phone into Apple, and the Genius Bar is like, they're like, we've literally never seen this problem before. Like, I'm a very scissors and glue kind of a gal. So I would say my last technological problem would be, there's so many. It's like a daily basis. We just froze. I had to reboot. Mine froze. And so like, it's always me. If there's a problem, it's always on my end. It's never not on my end.
And then lastly, here's a fun one. Angela D. They're all fun. This one just strikes me as fun plus. Angela D says, where did she get her sense of style in clothing and home design? Would she ever think of hosting a makeover show, either of rooms or fashion? Yeah, we should tell everyone, you were just in the LA Times.
Yes.
Your super cute small house was featured.
Dude, you should go check it out. Go to, and like, I don't, if it's behind the paywall now, you can just pay $1, join for 8 weeks, and then cancel. It's just $1 if you want to read the whole thing, because there's like 28 cute pictures in there, which was such a dream. I would love to host a makeover show. Love to. And, thank you very much. You know, I think I always loved making things. I always loved playing dress up. I always liked a little razzle dazzle. My grandpa was an artist, and my mom would always take me on like home tours. So like, you know, design was always sort of around me. Like my mom would bring me when the fancy people would have these tours. We would go look at all the fancy stuff, and that's where it came from.
Yeah, the LA Times story about your house was
God.
very exciting. How did that come about?
Well, we shot it in January, and
oh wow,
yeah. So I just figured it was never going to run, and it was so exciting. It just came out like 2 weeks ago. So I bought my first house, and I designed and contracted it myself, and I just was really proud of it, and I had pictures. I mean, I love design, and my dream. I mean, I want to be on like the cover of Domino, like that's, you know. And so we just submitted it places, and I was they were interested, and it was like super exciting. The reporter was great, the photographer was super fun. Like it was just my dream to have like a house spread somewhere.
This room that you're in right now.
Yeah.
Which room is this?
Okay, this is an old garage. So this is my. So I turned it into my
your studio.
This is my podcast studio. That's not wallpaper. That's underneath. There's soundproofing. That's an upholstered wall.
That's so smart.
So there's like batting underneath it, and then there's fabric on top. So it has soundproofing, but it's cute.
That is such a good idea.
Yeah, and it wasn't that expensive. And then I just painted the cement floor white. I got, you know, those are all from IKEA. I got a bunch of chairs from like World Market, and, you know, but it made it kind of fun.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks.
Arden, it's been so nice having you on the show. Everyone,
Allison.
go out, get Little Miss, Little Compton.
Yes. Come to the book party at dynastytypewriter.com, September 26th at 5 p.m. Pacific with me and Lauren Lapkus and Brian Safi and Rob Benedict. I will custom write a book to you, or go to ardenmarinebook.com.
Wonderful. And follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Allison Rosen. Follow the show's Twitter feed at ARIYNBF. I'm on Patreon again, patreon.com/Allison Rosen. I'm on Cameo, cameo.com/Allison Rosen.
How is Cameo?
I do not do the brisk business of, say, like a Doug Benson or someone.
Guys don't have to put makeup on either. Guys don't have, they can just stumble out of bed in a t-shirt and be like, happy birthday, Brian. And like, that's, you know.
I've let it all hang out in a few of them.
Okay.
Like typically when I get a request, I think, okay, when am I doing a show? I'll have makeup on. I'll just record it afterwards.
Yeah.
However, there have been some where it's like, oh, I don't know why this is the case. But I remember being like, well, makeup's not happening, or like there's a date that I want to get this in by if it's someone's birthday or whatever.
Right.
So I'm just going to let them see me without makeup.
Yes, honey.
Oftentimes my kids are in the cameos, which I don't know if that's great that I'm doing that, but man, they're so cute.
They're so cute. Come on.
Yeah.
Everybody
so are you
loves
on
a
Cameo?
kid. No, I'm not. They asked me to do it, and I haven't done it yet.
Can I tell you, they reached out to me and I was like, I don't think so. And then they were like, people are asking for you. And I said, I don't know. And then they reached out again. They're like, we just got another request for you. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it. I signed up. There were not like,
were they
there
lying?
were no requests zooming in. I feel like they made that up.
Right. I'm not doing it.
And then all of a sudden they started trickling in, and then they sped up a little bit. But this like, all these requests for me, because once I showed up, there were no requests.
Well, why doesn't everybody request you now?
That's right. Do it. Cameo. People love my cameos.
And I can't wait to do your show with you. The big group one. That's going to be fun.
That's right.
Who's going to be on? Or is it a surprise?
Well, It's not locked in yet.
Okay, then let
It's
it be a
little bit
surprise.
up in the air.
Let it be a
That's
surprise.
Right.
You,
I think I know.
you
but-
might even see my Zoom shirt again. If you like this shirt today, you might like it again on Thursday.
Same with what I'm wearing. And what am I miss? Oh yeah, please make sure you're subscribed to the show. Leave a nice comment. Listen to Arden's podcast.
It's really fun.
Will You Accept This Rose? And listen to my other podcast, Childish. And thank you. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment below. We love that. And thank you for listening, Arden. Thank you, guys for doing
Allison,
the show.
thank you for having me on. What a treat. Thanks for reading my book.
I loved it. Listeners, thank you for listening.
Bye.
I love you.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hey, do you know about the Allison Rosen show? We had a good time, but now we gotta go. Yeah, Allison Rosen.